Hello and welcome once again to Straight Bat, my weekly blog where, as the title suggests, I play and comment with a straight bat. Now, one of the more ironical images of last week's Bharat Bandh that was called by farmer organizations was the sight of social activist Anna Hazare announcing that he was going on a day-long fast in support of the farmers' demands. Surrounded by just a handful of supporters, Anna sat in his village of Ralegan Siddhi, recorded a message and sent it to news channels. Most TV channels ignored it, a far cry from when you might recall Anna Hazare was being chased with breathless excitement by almost every channel with multicam teams, and he was even being hailed by some as a modern day Mahatma. Much has changed since 2011. The so-called Anna movement in Indian politics has come and gone. The question is, can in some way the new band of protesters who are waving the anti-establishment flag, riding on farmer anger, be able to do to the Modi government what Anna, a septuagenarian Gandhian leader, did to Manmohan Singh 2.0. Will Modi 2.0 go the way of Manmohan 2.0? Let's be honest. There is little doubt that 2011 India against corruption movement that was led by Anna Hazare was in many ways a catalyst for the decline and fall of UPA 2 led by Dr. Singh. It brought corruption to the political center stage, crystallized public opinion firmly against the government, enfeebled the executive, and really paved the way for a Narendra Modi-like strongman leader to emerge and defeat a tottering Congress-led coalition. This self-styled India against corruption movement was interesting because it brought together a range of political figures from left to right on one platform. So you had a Prashant Bhushan, a Yogendra Yadav rubbing shoulders with a Baba Ramdev and a Shri Ravi Shankar. Not to forget an RTI activist called Arvind Kejriwal, who was suddenly being hailed as a champion of this anti-corruption movement by RSS foot soldiers. Crucially, this Anna movement swayed the urban middle class in particular. There was this rousing rallying cry, Sab Neta Chor Hai, which was bought into by the urban middle class. Now contrast this with the Anna movement, where the farmers have hit the streets. Unlike the 2011 movement, there is no one Anna-like figure who has become a mascot for the farmer movement. Instead, what we see are a multitude of diverse voices, mainly, of course, from farmer unions from Punjab, Haryana and Western Uttar Pradesh. We also see a range of dissenting groups who have various issues with the Modi government. A majority of them are those from the opposition. So in a sense, what has happened is, if 2011 became Team Anna versus Manmohan Singh's government, 2020 is being now pitched as the opposition versus Mr. Modi, with the farmers as the foot soldiers of these protests. But there is a key difference, or a couple of key differences. First, there is still no evidence of widespread middle class support for the farmers' cause. Remember, during the Anna movement, as I said earlier, the middle class could instantly identify with this anti-corruption slogan. A series of scams from 2G to coal scam to Commonwealth meant that corruption was firmly in the public gaze, and the Anna movement was able to therefore consolidate itself by tapping into this growing sense of middle class anger and alienation against their politicians. This link is missing this time. India's middle class is perhaps the most vociferous constituency for free market reform. The idea that a farmer needs a safety net in a competitive marketplace just doesn't strike those who live in our supermarket driven, online shopping driven consumerist nirvana. The Annadata may have been romanticized on celluloid. We may talk about, our great admiration for the Kisan. But the truth is, we don't want any special favors or protection for the farmer. We want him to come under agriculture tax. When stubble burning takes place, we will blame the farmer for the pollution. We won't blame ourselves for vehicular emissions. So the farmer, in a sense, is not someone we easily identify with in the urban middle class. The truth is, a mass populist upsurge needs an identifiable enemy. In the Anna movement, the enemy was clear. The union ministers in the Manmohan Singh government were being accused of corruption. In this particular farmers' movement, it is much more diffused, because scrapping a law doesn't create an immediate enemy figure. Some leaders, particularly from the opposition and farm leaders, have tried to whip up anger against the so-called crony capitalists, the Adani-Ambani combine. But whether such allegations of cronyism will stick easily is uncertain. Remember, many of these very business houses were patronized by the opposition politicians when they were in power. So their claims today ring a little hollow. There is another important difference between the Anna movement and the Kisan protests. In 2011, the media machine was an active participant in the protests, both in shaping the anti-government agenda and in elevating Team Anna into these national heroes in a way. Now let's be honest, a large section of the compromised mainstream media is unwilling to challenge the government's version of events, while routinely cornering the opposition instead. You've got a slew of ministers also speaking out across news channels and to newspapers, and therefore the Modi government, unlike the Manmohan Singh government, is very clear. They will not let prime time news warriors set the agenda. The government will set the agenda. The real difference, of course, lies therefore in the persona to some extent of Modi and Manmohan Singh. Manmohan Singh was weakened by the rigors of coalition politics. He was seen as a soft-spoken politician bureaucrat. That was his image. Modi, on the other hand, is this tough-talking authoritarian figure, the supreme leader who will brook no dissent. Where Manmohan Singh rarely sat on prestige, the Modi approach is driven by the supreme leader's conviction in his own sense of invincibility and infallibility, that the supreme leader can do no wrong. Unlike the Manmohan Singh government, which in a way legitimized the Anna movement or Team Anna by inviting them to be part of an official committee for negotiations, which allowed them to hold their protests first in Jantar Mantar, then in Ram Leela, the Modi government has very consciously attempted to divide and demonize the farmer protests, with union ministers openly suggesting that the so-called Tukde Tukde gang or urban Maoists have infiltrated these protests. This incessant name calling is a familiar strategy that has been used by the Modi government in its past to target and tarnish their critics. Anyone who questions the government is immediately questioned on his or her nationalism. And that's why you will find that even here there is the spectre of an anti-national conspiracy, a new K word, not Kisan but Khalistan, in some way suggesting that these farmers must be having some links with the Khalistani movement. And therefore convincing the urban middle class in particular that don't trust these farmers, they are out to destabilize the state. This has nothing to do with farm reforms, and if at all these are protests, they are only limited to Punjab. You even have a union minister who bizarrely suggested that the protesters are acting on the instructions of Pakistan and China. Now the farmers may to some extent have won the first round by at least forcing the Modi government to the negotiating table. But don't expect the Modi government to bend so easily, like to some extent the Manmohan Singh government did. No minister in this government is going to go to the dharna site to meet the farmers, talk to them. Remember, in Manmohan Singh's government, union ministers actually went to the airport to receive Baba Ramdev, virtually giving him a red carpet welcome. Here you have barricades being put up, roads being dug up, highways being dug up, and really the farmers are being enclosed, even tear gassed at times, to prevent them from entering the national capital. To my mind, therefore, a long winter of discontent lies ahead. As a postscript, let me remind you that 2020 has been a unique year. The urban middle class had to wake up to the crisis of the urban poor migrant during the lockdown, when thousands walked home for hundreds of miles. Now, because of the Kisan protests, the same urban middle class is having to at least wake up to the fact that the farmer and the rural economy matter. That perhaps at least is the one benefit that has come out of the protests we are seeing around us. Think about that. This is The Straight Path.